Morning roll call for day 27, February 16th, 2023. Anderson. Baldwin. Barlow. Present. Beitman. Here. Boner. Here. Bouchard. Here. Brennan. Here. Case. Present. Cooper. Here. Dockstetter. Here. Ellis. Present. French. Here. Murphy. Here. Guru.
Excused.
Hicks. Here. Hutchings. Here. Ide. Here. Jones.
Excused.
Kinski.
Here.
Cole.
Present.
Landon.
Here.
Larson.
Here.
McEwen.
Here.
Nethercott.
Excused.
Pappas.
Here.
Rothfuss.
Here.
Salazar.
Excused.
Schuler. Here. Scott.
Here.
Steinmetz.
Oh, she's sick. Excused. Yeah.
Excused. Baldwin. Present. Anderson. Excused. And President Driscoll.
Excused. And Jones is here.
Jones present. Thank you. President Driscoll.
Excused.
Excused. Morning roll call, Mr. Vice President. 25 present, 6 excused.
Thank you. Our prayer today is by Bishop Stephen Bigler of St. Mary's Catholic Church, the Cathedral here in Cheyenne. Welcome, Bishop.
Thank you. It's wonderful to be with you. I want to assure you that I do pray for you regularly in my own prayer. I've written a prayer today that's going to be in the first person. I did ask them to put a copy in your box, just in the event that you might find it helpful for your own journey. So it's in first person, and it's inspired by Thomas More. He was a lawyer, a judge, Chancellor of England at one time. Let's pause for a moment of quiet. Lord of all, guide me with the wisdom of your Holy Spirit in every thought, word, and action, for the glory of God and in the pursuit of his justice. May I be trustworthy with confidences, keen in study, accurate in analysis, correct in conclusion, able in argument, loyal to constituents, honest with all, courteous to adversaries, ever attentive to conscience. I ask for the gentleness of your Spirit to abide in my heart and listen with me to the people whom I serve, whether rich or poor, young or old, believers or unbelievers. Grant me the patience of your Spirit, that I might listen humbly to fellow legislators, no matter their political affiliation, whether conservative, moderate, or liberal, newly elected, or a senior member. Grant me prudence to discern the true good in every situation, and fortitude to make me resolute in trials, and steadfast in the pursuit of the good. Finally, I pray that my family may find in me the qualities that Thomas More's family found in him: friendship and courage, cheerfulness and charity, diligence in duties, counsel in adversity, patience in pain. Their good servant and God's servant first. Amen.
Thank you, Bishop. Senator Landon, lead us in the pledge.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible,
with liberty and justice for all. Reading, correction, and approval of journal.
Mr. President, your journal reports that the Your journal committee reports. The Journal of February 15, 2023 has been read and recommends that it be approved. Senator Larson, Chairman.
You've heard the journal report. Are there any objections? Being none, the report is adopted. Just a brief announcement. We still have the chirping with us. The person who was supposed to fix it came up sick, so just bear with us a little bit. We have a nurse of the day from Cheyenne Regional Medical Center, Anna Escamilla. Where is Anna? Not here. Okay, well, doggone it. Historical event of the day. 1919, the new Wyoming flag was presented officially to Governor Robert D. Carey, and it was designed by a woman from Buffalo. Quote for the day: the greatest leader is not necessarily the one who does the greatest things. He's the one that gets other people to do the greatest things. Ronald Reagan. Members of the Senate, we have a special performance by 2 members of the Lander Volunteer Fire Department Pipe Band, and Casper members Matt Mitchell and Eric Wilcox joining. The rest of the group got snowed in. They will be playing 3 pieces: Scotland the Brave, Bells Dunblane, and Green Hills. Their mission is to uphold the musical traditions of Scotland by providing high-quality pipe and drum band music to their community and to provide memorial service to their region's veterans and first responders. They also partner with the Jerry Behrens Foundation, which provides financial support to injured and deceased first responders. Senators, help me welcome these folks to the Wyoming Senate.
Senator Landon.
Mr. President, may I have privilege of the floor, please?
Granted.
Thank you. Mr. President, the good doctor is one of the doctors in District 27 up in Casper and does important work with the Barron's Foundation. Just wanted to acknowledge that and to remind the body that a lot of great Wyoming people come out of District 27. I'll tell you that. So thank you, Mr. President.
I didn't hear a second to that yet. Senator Boner.
Thank you, Mr. President. May I have privilege of the floor?
Granted.
Okay, ladies and gentlemen, in the South Gallery, you'll see some visitors we have with us here today. It's with the Wyoming Lead class, number 17. So Wyoming Lead is Wyoming's longest running statewide leadership program for adults. That's designed to develop and train a network of leaders who can speak forcefully and articulately for agriculture and Wyoming communities. So far, we've had 16 classes, 257 graduates, some of them on this floor here today. And so participants are actively involved in agriculture or ag-related business. So we're glad to have them here with us here today. Let's go ahead and give a warm Wyoming Senate welcome to Lead Class 17.
Thank you, Ellen. I forgot. Signing of enrolled acts. Do we have any? Senate Enrolled Act number 26, originally Senate File number 8.
Senate Enrolled Act Number 26, being original Senate File 8, an act relating to public health and safety, providing that the Department of Health may make essential subsidy payments to behavioral health centers based on service needs.
I'm about to sign Senate Enrolled Act number 26, originally Senate File number 8. I have so signed. Senate Enrolled Act number 27, originally Senate File 11.
Senate Enrolled Act Number 27, being original Senate File 11, an act related to public health and safety amending eligibility requirements and the reimbursement system for the Wyoming Colorectal Cancer Early Detection and Prevention Program.
I'm about to sign Senate Enrolled Act number 27, originally Senate File 11. I have so signed. Senate Enrolled Act number 28, originally Senate File number 31.
Senate Enrolled Act Number 28, being original Senate File 31, an act relating to crimes and offenses, repealing a civil cause of action for and the crime of trespass to access adjacent or proximate land for resource data collection purposes and making conforming amendments.
I'm about to sign Senate Enrolled Act number 28, originally being Senate File 31. I have so signed. Senate Enrolled Act number 29, originally Senate File 25.
Senate Enrolled Act Number 29, being original Senate File 25, an act relating to district and county and prosecuting attorneys, requiring each district attorney and county and prosecuting attorney to be a licensed attorney and a member in good standing with the Wyoming State Bar during the term of office for which the district attorney or county and prosecuting attorney was elected or appointed, and specifying applicability.
I'm about to sign Senate Enrolled Act number 29, originally Senate File 25. I have so signed. Messages from the House.
From the House of Representatives, message number 350, third reading passed February 15, 2023. Mr. President, the following bills passed the House on third reading by the votes indicated. Senate File 8, essential subsidy payments to behavioral health centers, ayes 48, noes 8, excused 6. Message number 351, Senate File 11, Cancer Early Detection Amendments, ayes 59, noes 2, excused 1. Message number 352, Senate File 31, Adjacent Land Resource Data Trespass Repeal, ayes 41, noes 21, excused 1. Message number 356, Senate File number 25, District and Prosecuting Attorneys Bar License Requirement, ayes 48, noes 14. Message number 359, Conferees Appointed, Joint Conference Committee number 1. Mr. President, the House appointed House conferees to meet with the Like Committee number 1 from the Senate on amendments to Senate File 48. House conferees are Representative Harshman, Chairman, Representative Closton, Representative Northrup. Message number 360, concurrence passed. Mr. President, the House did concur on Senate amendments to the following bills by the votes indicated. House Bill number 5, voter registry list, voter ID and absentee ballots, ayes 55, excused 7. Message number 361, House Bill number 57, Armed Forces Amendments, ayes 54, excused 8. Message number 362, House Bill 15, County Authority to Dissolve Museum Boards, clarification, ayes 44, noes 10, excused 8. Message number 363, Mr. President, the House did concur on House Bill 86, Disclosure of Private Cryptographic Keys, ayes 41, noes 13, excused 8. Message number 353, concurrence requested. Mr. President, Senate File 51, School Finance Regional Cost Adjustment, passed on third reading in an amended form. Ayes 45, noes 16, excused 1. The House respectfully asks the Senate to concur by adopting amendments. Message number 355, concurrence requested. Mr. President, Senate File number 68, Prescriptive Easement for Water Conveyances, passed the House on third reading in an amended form. Ayes 51, noes 10, excused 1. House respectfully asks the Senate to concur. Message number 358, Joint Conference Committee Report adopted. Mr. President, the House adopted Joint Conference Committee number 1 report on House Bill 41, Lightweight Trailers Permanent Registration. Ayes 56, excused 6. Message number 354, third reading failed. Mr. President, Senate File number 9 failed to pass the House third reading. Ayes 31, noes 30, excused 1. Message number 357 corrected, concurrence requested. Mr. President, having passed a motion to reconsider the bills, Senate File 9, Medicaid Coverage Licensed Pharmacist, passed on third reading in an amended form. Ayes 35, noes 27. Signed, Katie Talbot, House Chief Clerk.
Thank you. Senator Baldwin, if you're ready on message number 357, requesting concurrence on Senate File 9. I'll have that read in.
Message number 357 corrected, referencing Senate File 9, Medicaid Coverage Licensed Pharmacists.
Senator Baldwin.
Thank you, Mr. President. I am ready on message number 357. I would move message 357 referring to Senate File Original 9, Medicaid Coverage Licensed Pharmacist, and I would ask for your no vote on concurrence. What happened is this came across to the other House who amended it in committee. They re-amended it on the floor. They divided another amendment on the floor, and what we ended up with is something that doesn't really resemble the original intent of the bill that we sent over to them. And I would appreciate the opportunity to take a group over there and perhaps shoot down some of the black helicopters and fix this bill.
Thank you for the discussion. Motion is that the Senate do concur on Senate File 9.
Do not.
And vote no. So you're asked to vote no. Chief Clerk, please call the roll.
Concurrence vote on Senate File 9. Anderson? No. Baldwin? No. Barlow? No. Whiteman? Aye. Boner? Boner, no. Bouchard? Aye. Brennan? No. Case? No. Cooper? No. Dockstetter? No. Ellis? No. French? Aye. Murphy? No. Guru? No. Hicks? No. Hutchings? No. Ide? Aye. Jones? No. Kinski? No. Cole? No. Landon? No. Larson? No. McEwen? Aye. Nethercott? No. Pappas? No. Rothfuss? No. Salazar? Aye. Schuler? No. Scott? No. Steinmetz? Excused. President Driscoll?
No.
No. Closing vote. Closing. Vote closed. Senate File 9, concurrence, 6 aye, 24 no, 1 excused.
By your vote, you have failed to concur on Senate File 9. The committee will be the 3 Bs: Senator Baldwin, Chair, Senator Barlow, and Senator Beitman. Senator Hicks, if you're ready on message number 355, requesting concurrence on Senate File 68. I'll have that read in.
Message number 355, referencing Senate File 68, prescriptive easement for water conveyances.
Senator Hicks.
Mr. President, I move message number 355, original Senate File 68, prescriptive easements for water conveyances, when asked for your favorable consideration of a yes vote. Members, when this went down to the other end, they did have a standing committee amendment, which basically cleaned up and clarified that there was no substantive changes in there. And then there was 3 third reading amendments. Nothing that I think that requires to go down there. So with the, they added an extra 24 hours on notice for any landowner that you're going to remove their infrastructure. So it went from 48 to 72 hours. They added clarifying language, Mr. Chairman, for what constituted uninterrupted. It just brought in what a definition of that means in the context of historical and traditional use of a water conveyance system. And then they decided to delete hostile and insert adverse. Mr. Chairman, I don't think that will substantively change the bill. Courts will understand what that means either way. So I'd ask for your favorable consideration of a yes vote on message 355.
The motion is that the Senate do concur on Senate File 68, and you are asked to vote aye. Chief Clerk, please call the roll.
Concurrence vote, roll call, Senate File 68. Anderson? Aye. Baldwin? Aye. Barlow? Aye. Beitman? Aye. Boner? Aye. Bouchard? Aye. Brennan? Aye. Case? No. Cooper? Aye. Dockstetter? Aye. Ellis? No. French? Aye. Murphy? Aye. Guru? Aye. Hicks?
Aye.
Aye. Hutchings? Aye. Ide? Aye. Jones? Aye. Kinski?
Aye.
Aye. Cole? Aye. Landon? Aye. Larson? No. McEwen? Aye. Nethercott? Aye. Pappas? Aye. Rothfuss? No. Salazar? Aye. Schuler? Aye. Scott? Aye. Steinmetz excused. President Driscoll?
Aye.
Aye. Closing vote. Closing. Vote closed. Senate File 68 concurrence, 26 aye, 4 no, 1 excused.
By your vote, you have concurred on Senate File 68. Committee reports.
February 15, 2023. Mr. President, your Committee Number 8, Transportation, Highways, and Military Affairs, to whom was referred House Bill 59 engrossed, Wyoming National Guard tuition benefits, respectfully reports same back to the Senate with a recommendation that it do pass. Ayes, Senators Boner, Brennan, Furphy, Kolb, and Pappas. Senator Kolb, acting chairman. Mr. President, your Committee Number 8, Transportation, Highways, and Military Affairs, to whom is referred House Bill 56, Purple Star Schools, respectfully reports same back to the Senate with a recommendation that it do pass. Ayes, Senators Boner, Brennan, Furphy, Kolb, and Pappas. Senator Kolb, acting chairman. Mr. President, your Committee Number 8, Transportation, Highways, and Military Affairs, to whom was referred House Bill 38 engrossed, Wyoming National Guard member referral, respectfully reports same back to the Senate with a recommendation that it do pass. Ayes, Senators Boner, Brennan, Furphy, Kolb, and Pappas. Senator Kolb, acting chairman.
Thank you. Bills on second reading. Senator Boner.
Thank you, Mr. President. The following House bills have an appropriation. I ask that they be re-referred to Committee Number 2 Appropriations. House Bill 59 engrossed Wyoming National Guard tuition benefits. House Bill 38 Wyoming National Guard member referral.
That objection so ordered on both bills. Thank you. House Bill 22, second reading of the House bill.
House Bill 22, State Land Lease Deficiencies Cure Process.
There is an amendment. Could I have the amendment read in, please?
House Bill 22, second reading amendment number 1 to substitute Bill number 1, page 3, line 5, delete.
Senator Hicks.
Mr. President, as soon as I get through my pile here. I move second reading amendment number 1 to House Bill 22 and ask for your favorable consideration. This was brought up by the good minority floor leader yesterday that we have a number of required certified mail. This just deleted the requirement for 2 of those certified mail that would just be normal mail. So ask for your favorable consideration.
Question being called. We're voting on second reading amendment number 1 to House Bill 22. All in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed, no. Second reading amendment number 1 to House Bill 22 is passed. We're back on the bill. House Bill 22 having been read 2 separate times. The question is, shall the bill be heard a third time? Seeing no objection, it is so ordered. House Bill 27, second reading of the House file.
House Bill 27, School Facilities Consolidated Remediation Schedule.
House Bill 27 has been read 2 separate times. The question is, shall the bill be read a third time? Hearing no objection, it is so ordered. House Bill 31, second reading of the House bill.
House Bill 31, BOCES as local education agencies.
House Bill 31 having been read 2 separate times. The question is, shall the bill be read a third time? Hearing no objection, it is so ordered. House Bill 44, second reading of the House bill.
House Bill 44, Road and Bridge Construction Alternative Contracting.
House Bill 44 having been read 2 separate times. The question is, shall the bill be read a third time? Hearing no objection, it is so ordered. House Bill 101, second reading of the House bill.
House Bill 101, Uniform Trust Code Amendments.
House Bill 101 having been read 2 separate times. The question is, shall the bill be read a third time? Hearing no objection, it is so ordered. House Bill 118, second reading of the House bill.
House Bill 118 engrossed, Volunteer Firefighter Pension Funding.
House Bill 118 having been heard 2 separate times. The question is, shall the bill be heard a third time? Hearing no objection, it is so ordered. House Bill 127, second reading of the House bill.
House Bill 127 engrossed, Healthcare Facilities and Clergy.
House Bill 127 having been read two separate times. The question is, shall the bill be read a third time? Hearing no objection, it is so ordered. House Bill 165, second reading of the House bill.
House Bill 165, living organ donor protection.
House Bill 165 having been read two separate times. The question is, shall the bill be read a third time? Hearing no objection, it is so ordered. House Bill 174, second reading of the House bill.
House Bill 174, engrossed, homestead exemption amendments.
House Bill 174 having been read two separate times. The question is, shall the bill be read a third time? Hearing no objection, it is so ordered. House Bill 180, second reading of the House bill.
House Bill 180, engrossed, brucellosis testing notification requirements.
House Bill 180 having been read two separate times. The question is, shall the bill be read a third time? Hearing no objection, it is so ordered. House Bill 195, second reading of the House bill. Senator Kinski.
I've had a number of people approach me about amendments to this, and they're struggling to figure ARPA out. I'd ask that this be laid back until Monday for second reading. Tuesday. Oh, hey, we're not going to be here. Tuesday.
I think the actual procedure is you lay back for one day and you'll lay it back again tomorrow. Mr.
Okay,
Vice
see you again
President.
tomorrow.
Okay, without objection, this bill is laid back till tomorrow. House Bill 229, second reading of the House bill.
House Bill 229, engrossed, electronic payment of sales and use taxes.
House Bill 229 having been read two separate times. The question is, shall the bill be read a third time? Hearing no objection, it is so ordered. Bills on third reading and final passage. Mr. Vice President, do you have a consent list?
We do, Mr. President. I move we do have a consent list. I move the third reading consent list, which is as follows. House Bill 96, transfer on death deed insurance coverage. House Bill 106, eminent domain wind energy collector systems. House Bill 142, notice of annexation. House Bill 213, energy production inventory exemption. And House Bill 239, vehicle idling decriminalization.
Would anyone like any of the bills removed from the consent list? Senator Case.
House Bill 213, energy production inventory exemption.
Been removed. Anyone else? Having been read three separate times, the question is, shall these bills pass the Senate? House Bill 96, transfer on death deed insurance coverage. House Bill 106, eminent domain wind energy collector systems. House Bill 142, notice of annexation. House Bill 239, vehicle idling decriminalization. Chief Clerk will call the roll.
Third reading consent list, roll call vote. Anderson? Baldwin? Barlow? Beitman? Boner? Bouchard? Brennan? Case? Cooper? Dockstetter? Ellis? French? Murphy? Guru? Hicks? Hutchings? Ide? Jones? Kinski? Kolb? Landon? Larson? McEwen? Nethercott? Pappas? Rothfuss? Salazar? Schuler? Scott? Steinmetz, excused. President Driscoll?
Aye.
Aye. On the consent list, 30 aye, 1 excused. House Bill 96, are there any changes? Closing vote. Closing. Vote closed. House Bill 96, 30 aye, 1 excused. House Bill 106. Are there changes? Kinski? Aye to no. Kate, Boner, aye to no. Rothfuss, aye to no. Bouchard, aye to no. McEwen? Aye to no. Salazar? No. Dockstetter? No. Beitman? No. Ellis? No.
Driscoll, no.
Driscoll? No. Grew? No. Closing vote? Larson? No. Closing vote? Closing. Vote closed. House Bill 106, 18 aye, 12 no, 1 excused. House Bill 142, are there any changes? Closing vote. Closing. Vote closed. House Bill 142, 30 aye, 1 excused. And House Bill 239, are there any changes? Closing vote. Closing. Vote closed. House Bill 239, 30 aye, 1 excused.
Having received the affirmative vote of the majority of members elected to the Senate, House Bill 96, Transfer on Death Deed Insurance Coverage, House Bill 106, Eminent Domain Wind Energy Collector Systems, House Bill 142, Notice of Annexation, and House Bill 239, Vehicle Idling Decriminalization, have passed the Senate. Bills on third reading. House Bill 7, third reading of the House bill.
House Bill 7, Underage Marriage Amendments, sponsored by Representative Zwanitzer, an act relating to domestic relations.
There is an amendment. Can we have the amendment read in, please?
House Bill 7, third reading amendments number 1 to engrossed copy, page 1, line 3, delete.
Senator Hutchins.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I move third reading amendment 1 to House Bill number 7 and ask for your favorable consideration. This bill is one that our unfortunately sick senator brought to me, and we got together and decided to bring it forth as an amendment. It is actually a very minor change, and I mean that literally, to the bill. We just go through, and the places where it mentions the word persons, we make sure it's changed back to minor. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Any questions? Question being called. We're voting. Senator Ellis. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. President. I'm struggling to catch up. Just a little more discussion on what the effect that would have on this bill. Sorry, I'm not following it very fast this morning.
Very good. Senator Rothfuss.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And I guess I don't see either why it isn't technically accurate in its other capacity. These are persons of a certain age. That is a legally accurate description. Minor, I am curious, where is that defined in statute? What is the specific definition, and is that sufficiently described as to be an equivalent? And then my final question is, if they are statutorily the same, what does this do and why do we need it? And if they're statutorily different, what are we going for, Mr. President, in that difference that requires the change? I don't see a reason to support this amendment at this time.
Senator Hutchins.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. It's kind of hard to answer with the senator gone, and this was something that it was their sensibility that they thought it should be changed back. If we look at the bill, we see that the word minor was struck out in several instances, so I believe it was already in our statutes. So that's all they were doing, Mr. Chairman, is just making sure those were changed back. Thank you.
We're voting on third reading amendment number 1 to House Bill 7. All in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed, no. No. The amendment has failed. Third reading amendment number 1 to House Bill 7 has failed the Senate. Division being called. All in favor, please stand. All opposed, please stand. Vote is 11 yes, 19 no. By your vote, third reading amendment number 1 to House Bill 7 has failed to pass the Senate. Reading clerk, read in the next amendment, please.
House Bill 7, third reading amendment number 2 to engrossed copy, page 193, delete.
Senator Hutchins.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I move third reading amendment number 2 to House Bill number 7 and ask for your favorable consideration. For many of us in here, marriage is not just a contract. It is a holy covenant instituted by God, a covenant that we entered into with the design that we will stay together for life. Over the past few years, government has done much interfering in this institution. We have seen those in the entertainment industry actually cheapen marriage in my eyes. Many of us in this body have taken the act of marriage very seriously. I delayed the second reading of this House bill to get more information from the bringer. I would wager, and you guys know I'm not a betting woman, that many of us have not had no idea what the laws were on marriage dealing with minors. Within a few moments, we were incensed that minors were getting married in Wyoming. I do not want minors to get married, but thankfully, on a few that are getting married here in Wyoming, there are circumstances where it would be best for both parties involved, especially if both are mature minors, and there are some. Who would I be to say to them, yes or no, you can't get married? And I mean that by being a legislator. In Article 1, Section 7 of our Wyoming Constitution, it says no absolute, arbitrary powers over the lives, liberty, and property of free men exist nowhere in a republic. Marriage in general, for some, that is not harmful. It doesn't inflict pain or suffering on anybody. Now, if there is a pregnancy involved with the minors, without this amendment, we remove the couple's right to marry, bring up their child with a father and mother present. There are groups here in Wyoming who prepare their sons and daughters to be married at a younger age. They are more mature and ready for this role. I got together during that time, Mr. Chairman, with the bringer of the bill. I really wanted to know what was going on, and he gave me some answers. Over the past 5 years, other states are updating their laws on child marriage. Wyoming is one of 8 states remaining with some of the national groups that are pushing 21 or 18 as a minimum age. I don't believe there is a situation here in Wyoming where 16 or 17-year-olds can marry without parental permission or a judge order. I believe in Oklahoma and Hawaii, there are 15. I know there's some arguments regarding pregnancy and having the parent married, having the parents get married, or children, minors get married. I think that's what he meant. But I do not believe that we can wait until, I do believe that they can wait until they're 16 to get married, as they would likely be living with one's parents, or in a difficult situation, there would be supporters. Now, that was the answer in quotes that I received from the bringer of the bill. There was nothing to do with child brides, nothing to do with child trafficking, which this bill in no way would stop. So we talked some more, and we brought another amendment to the bringer of the bill, and we came to an agreement. And I thought that was awesome. That is the amendment you have before you now. It is one that both sides agree on, and I hope you will as well. The amendment makes the marriage age 18 and above, where one could legally be married, but also allows any marriage below that age to be endorsed by a judge and the parents. So that, Mr. Chairman, is what this amendment does, and I'll sit for more questions. Thank you.
Further discussion, Senator Boner.
Thank you, Mr. President. I want to commend the previous speaker for seeking the middle ground on this one, and also just point out that I did provide the body with some statistics as to just how often these marriages happen. And the short story is it's very rare. I think you see one instance of a marriage happening with an individual that's 15 or younger in the past 10 years. So in the spirit of that moderation, I think it's important we understand just how much impact this bill is having, or how little impact this bill would have on the lives of everyday Wyomingites. So on support of the amendment.
Further discussion, Senator Case.
Mr. Chairman, Mr. President, I don't think there's an agreement that this is a good amendment. And I'm a co-sponsor of this bill, and I don't agree with it. And I also talked to the sponsor. Let's talk about what the existing state of Wyoming law is. In the existing state of Wyoming law, you have to be 16 years old or older to be married without the consent of a judge. At the time of marriage, the parties shall be at least 16 years of age, except as otherwise provided. Part B, all marriages involving a person under 16 years of age are prohibited and voidable unless before contracting the marriage, a judge of a court of record in Wyoming approves the marriage and authorizes the county clerk to issue a license therefore. So a judge, there's no bottom limit, apparently, and a judge can authorize a marriage. This bill seeks to say that the legal age is 18, but the person 16 and 17-year-old can get married with that judge, but also with their guardians or parents standing in. It does not permit marriage less than that, and I submit to you that that's good policy, Mr. President. This is the way we should go. 15-year-old person is a child, Mr. President. Yes, I concede that 15-year-olds can make babies. And I can see that happening. But I will submit to you that 15-year-olds don't necessarily make the best parents. And Mr. President, cultures around the world differ. And it's common to have marriages of young females to older males. In some circumstances in Wyoming, that would be a crime. If you look at the list of sexual crimes in Wyoming, it's quite long, involving, there's statutory rape that can be consensual. There's even exists if both are young people, but there's 4 years difference in the victims. Always under our law, an adult having even consensual sex with a minor is illegal. It's a serious crime. We know it happens, and we know that allowing marriage can sometimes disguise that crime. especially when the families are there wanting it to happen, which sometimes happens in people that practice the covenant. This is about what the state does to recognize marriage. And that's a contract. And that's a contract to seek to promote the interests of the children, promote the interests of minors, and protect them from harm. I ask you to resist this amendment. And I think there is some confusion, and it's not malicious, Mr. President, about the main sponsor's support of this amendment. I submit to you that the main sponsor does not support this amendment.
Thank you. Further discussion? Further discussion? Senator Hutchins.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I know not only called the prime sponsor and spoke to him, but the next morning saw him in the hallway and asked him one more time, are you in agreement with this? And he said, yes. So for someone that was outside of our conversation to say that he's not in agreement, that's sad, because that's not what happened between me and the bringer of the bill. What's been brought into this bill has been statutory rape and child brides, which we know are already illegal. And there are circumstances in our nation with the influx of people coming across the border where there are religious beliefs or habits where they marry younger women. In our nation, in our states, these laws have already been written. That's against the law. What we're talking about here, Mr. Chairman, is trying to make an arbitrary law about the actual age of marriage. When I went to the bringer of the bill and I told him not only once, not only twice during our phone conversation.
I think you're out of bounds talking about
All right.
what another member's
Well,
told you.
Mr.
so.
Chairman, he brought it up, so I'm just trying to clarify it. And I think it's only fair, really I do, to let someone say that something happened that didn't happen is just wrong. So I'm gonna say, hopefully respectfully, that what we're talking about here is the age of marriage. And when I spoke to the bringer of the bill, he agreed twice on the phone and he agreed once the next day. So with that.
We don't do that here.
Okay.
I don't, you're out of bounds on it.
All right, forgive me. So, Mr. Chairman, again, what we're trying to do is make the legal age 18 to be married. And if someone under 18 wants to be married, they have to have their parent, legal guardian, and a judge endorse that marriage. This will help some of our religious communities. We don't want them to fall under this statute to be going against the law. With that, Mr. Chairman, I don't think I can say anything more. Vote it up, vote it down. I appreciate you.
Thank you. We're voting on second reading or third reading amendment number 2 to House Bill 7. All in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed, no. No. Amendment has failed. Division being called. All those in favor, please stand. You, all opposed, please stand. Amendment has failed 9 to 21. By your vote, third reading amendment number 2 to House Bill 7 has failed. Will you clerk read the next amendment, please?
House Bill 7, third reading amendment number 3 to engrossed copy, page 2 after line 21, insert.
Senator Case.
Thank you, Mr. President. I would move third reading amendment number 3 to House Bill 7. Mr. President, this provides an exception to this bill for the case of emancipated minors. These are minors that have been awarded, in essence, adulthood. I'm not saying that right, but they've been given authority by the courts to enter into contracts to as an adult, to own property, to on and on, Mr. President. This provides for that exception. We recognize the court's action in this, and it seems appropriate to me. Thank you.
Thank you. Further discussion? Further discussion. Senator Nethercott.
Thank you, Mr. President. On and for the amendment, I think this amendment actually is incredibly intelligent in how it weaves all of these concerns that have been presented. So as we know, even if you authorize a 15-year-old or a 16-year-old to get married, interestingly enough, they still can't drive a car, they still can't enter into a contract, they can't get a mortgage on a home, they can't do hardly anything. And so they may be married, but they don't have the freedom to contract. And so that emancipation concept under our law is really important. And so if they've been determined to be emancipated, which requires notification to their parents or guardians, and then approval by a court of law that says you do now have the freedom to contract and make independent decisions, including getting married and buying a house or buying a car or getting employment, and opening a bank account and those types of things without the consent of a parent, then you're okay to move freely. And so this actually covers all of those concerns. And I think it is a very intelligent amendment that makes our laws compatible on this topic. And so on and for the amendment.
Thank you. Further discussion? Question being called. We're voting on third reading amendment number 3 to House Bill number 7. All in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed, no. Third reading amendment number 3 to House Bill number 7 has passed the Senate. We're back on the bill. Senator Hicks.
Yeah, Mr. President, I do want to bring to your attention the handout from my colleague from the Land of Commerce provided to you. And I've repeatedly asked, what's the necessity for the bill? Do we have rampant 15 and 16-year-old marriages within the state of Wyoming, Mr. Chairman? And I think if you look at the vital statistics, twice in the last 12 years have we had that occurrences where somebody under the age of 16 actually got married. But even if you look at the 16 and 17-year-olds and you look at the trend on that vital statistic, this is a self-correcting problem in the society that we live in today. We've gone from, in 1978, 215 16-year-olds getting married to, on an average of the last decade, somewhere around 6. Mr. Chairman, it just looks to me like this bill is a solution for a problem that doesn't exist. And what problem does exist out there is already correcting itself. So on and against the bill.
Senator Nethercott.
Thank you, Mr. President. On and for the bill. We have certainly seen our fair share of bills come through this body that probably don't have the statistics to justify the time and effort for what we do in this chamber and in this building. That said, it's been clear to me this session and in sessions before that this body is committed to the protection of children from exploitation. And make no mistake, this is part of that conversation. It certainly is a problem. I think it's probably well hidden, including from the Office of Vital Statistics in a variety of ways. But if you don't believe that the marriage of a 14-year-old girl is not in some form exploitation, because I assure you, it is not the fantasy of two teenagers who fall in love. It is much different and much more exploitive. This is one of those protections, and you heard one of those pieces about becoming a harbor state. We know the state where there's gambling became a harbor state for quick and easy marriages. When you find yourself as an adult male having relationships with a teenage girl, and you're about to get charged with a crime, do you know where you take her? You love her. You're going to marry her. It's all going to be fine. And her parents are traumatized if they even know. And you go off on a romantic getaway to one of those states that isn't paying attention, right? That doesn't have advanced laws. That's what Wyoming is becoming, which is why we're only 1 of 8, right? 1 of 8. This is a tool to protect the exploitation of young men and women, but primarily young girls. Make no mistake that that's what it's for. And this body has made a commitment to protect girls of this age. I've seen it. I've heard those impassioned pleas. And I've been so proud of you for being so concerned about the young women of this state. And I hope you continue in that vein. On and for the bill.
Senator Ide.
Thank you, Mr. President. On and against this bill, I think that it's good hearing a lot of this debate. There again, the data doesn't show there's a problem. That's kind of what I have to go to, those numbers. It looks like we're chasing a problem that really isn't there, and makes me wonder why we're even bringing this bill if there's some other unintended consequence that I don't really see. Thank you, Mr. President.
Further discussion. Further discussion. Question being called. Senator Brennan, you're in there and you beat the line.
Sorry, thank you, Mr. President. I've looked at this bill, and I've looked at this bill again and again, because we're hearing different angles and different stories, and I'm just looking at it too from the perspective of a mom with young kids, with girls that will be teenagers soon. And I guess I'm wondering, why are we, I hear, well, we're stepping on parental rights, we're doing this, we're doing that, but we've had discussions where we don't let kids drive, we don't let them smoke, we don't let them do a bunch of things. I'm not sure why we're like, why would we allow them to marry at 15? Maybe our statistics say that there's not that happening, but I don't know. Vote it up, vote it down, but I'm just, from a mom's perspective, I think it's okay to say you need to be 16 or 17 to marry and give permission.
Thank you. Further question being called. House Bill 7, having been read 3 separate times, the question is, shall the bill pass? The chief clerk will call the roll.
Roll call, House Bill 7. Anderson? Aye. Baldwin? No. Barlow? Aye. Beitman? Aye. Broner? Aye. Bouchard? Aye. Brennan? Aye. Case? Aye. Cooper? Aye. Dockstetter? No. Ellis? Aye. French? Aye. Furphy? Aye. Guru? Aye. Hicks? No. Hutchings? No. Ide? No. Jones? Aye. Kinski? Aye. Cole? Aye. Landon? Aye. Larson? Aye. McEwen? No. Nethercott? Aye. Pappas? Aye. Rothfuss? Aye. Salazar? No. Schuler? Aye. Scott? Aye. Steinmetz excused. President Driscoll?
Aye.
Aye. Closing vote. Closing. Vote closed. House Bill 7, 23 aye, 7 no, 1 excused.
House Bill 7, underage marriage amendments, having received the affirmative vote of the majority of members elected to the Senate, House Bill 7 has passed the Senate. Before we start the next one, I'm going to admonish, I didn't want to stop in the middle of the debate on that, but bringing up private on all parties conversations is strictly out of the area of the bill, and I will stop people in the future. I'll gavel you down, but I hate to stop a debate in the middle because it looks like we're putting a finger on a bill, but I will be pretty strict in the future. Thank you. House Bill 213, third reading of the House bill. Senator Hutchins.
Mr. President, I would like to apologize. I was in my passion debate and was incensed by an accusation. So I do apologize for going against the rules that I didn't know were the rules, but thank you.
All's good. Thank
I
you.
accept your admonishment again.
Thank you. Senator Case.
Mr. President, I too apologize to the body and to the good senator from Miami County. And, I do.
Thank you.
I believe what I said, but I think there might be a misunderstanding, Mr. President, and we're a good Senate, we're good senators, and I'll do my best, sir. Thank you.
Got it. Thank you all a lot. House Bill 213, third reading of the House bill.
House Bill 213, engrossed, Energy Production Inventory Exemption, sponsored by Representative Burkhart, an act relating to ad valorem taxation.
Senator Case.
Mr. President, thank you very much. I asked this to be brought off the consent list so we could kind of understand this. And, you know, it's a unique situation. It really does kind of apply to one industry that can take advantage of it. And the issue that happened was that we have a federal policy that extended something called the production tax credit. And the production tax credit allows for operators of renewable facilities to receive a compensation for the amount of electricity they produce. I'm not exactly sure what that tax credit is right now, but it was 2.2 cents per kilowatt hour. In order to, and it changes over time and it's been extended, so I can't tell you. And it's a sliding scale as the facility is, has years of use, that amount changes. The thing that caused the necessity for these, this kind of a bill was that the last go round of the production tax credit said that you had to purchase your equipment before a certain time to qualify for the production tax credit, the federal subsidy. So all of a sudden, renewable energy company developers, Mr. President, had a huge problem. They had to buy a bunch of equipment. Didn't say it had to be installed. That was a second date that was within it. But to qualify for the production tax credit, they had to have purchased the equipment. So all of a sudden you had massive inventories of wind energy and other equipment being purchased to make sure you got in line to get the federal subsidy. Well, then you have that equipment, you know, and we have pretty sharp assessors out there that are looking around for that equipment. And it's, so the argument is that equipment is not really being used yet. We had to buy it to get the federal subsidy. So this is largely a necessity for those companies that want to try to take advantage of the federal subsidies. Other companies, of course, do buy in advance of construction projects and things, but it's not quite the same thing. And it's not where they're going to maintain the equipment for years, for example, before it's put to use. So I'm not a real big fan of this bill because it's a tax break. It's a tax break that most advantages someone that's already getting a huge tax break from the United States government and all of us. And so I just want to bring that to your attention. I think that for-profit companies operating without subsidies, you know, they have to think about cash flow. They have to think about making projects work on their own economics, and there's not quite as much incentive to store equipment for years in anticipation of utilization. Now, of course, you get volume deals, and there's various reasons why that's fuzzy around the edges. But this is largely, I think, a benefit to renewable energy companies that qualify for massive federal subsidies. And I keep coming back to the point that I think these companies need to stand tall and make a commitment to Wyoming. This is Wyoming's future. They need to pay their way. They're doing important work, but we need a fair deal too for our people. Thank you, Mr. President.
Further discussion. Senator Landon.
Mr. President, thank you. And I appreciate the senator bringing this bill off the consent list so that we can have this visit. You know, he's absolutely right. I don't know if the companies that the good chairman of corporations referenced can take advantage of any of these federal subsidies anymore, any of these incentives. He's right. We went through a wave here about 4 or 5 years ago of these companies taking advantage of being able to buy all of this new equipment that they would go ahead and take out to the field and refurbish these great big wind farms that you see out across Wyoming now. So that's an industry that I'm not sure how much of a window still exists there, Mr. President. What this does, and I think we did good work on the amendment. I apologize if I didn't explain everything in that amendment adequately, but I think it puts some sideboards and tightens this thing up. You might recall, we tightened it up, the good senator from Sweetwater County tightened this up to 1 year. So if we're gonna try to incentivize the development of these laydown yards, Mr. President, we've got to take a little bit of a leap of faith. I would like to see these laydown yards exist in our state, down along our railroad corridor, all the way up through our interstate highway systems. There are a lot of places. We've got a rail yard in my neck of the woods where we've got an opportunity for this kind of thing, where in the oil and gas industry, for example, we could try to incentivize, from an economic development standpoint, these laydown yards. The benefit that I really didn't touch on, that I think might exist, Mr. President, if we get these laydown yards started, not all of them are going to remove that equipment in 1 year. I think it gives an opportunity at that point for our assessors to go ahead and tax that product. But if they keep that equipment for only that year and they move it on to one of our sister counties, and remember, this doesn't allow you to utilize it in another state. This is equipment that's going to go to production in Wyoming. So if we have a laydown yard and it's going to one of our other counties, that's where the taxation exists and occurs. All this does is incentivize it up front to bring this material into Wyoming and maybe create a new sector. And that's the piece of it that I like enough that I'm willing to give this bill a chance, Mr. President. Thank you.
Further discussion. Senator Biden.
Thank you, Mr. President. Well, I struggle with this one because everybody knows I vehemently hate the personal property tax. It's the worst tax we have. It's awful. We had this debate on a previous bill that gave this tax break to everyone. I think that's the way to do tax policy. I don't believe in doing tax policy piecemeal at a time, picking winners and losers in this case. One industry gets to benefit from a tax break while the rest of us don't. I don't think that's how we should be doing things with tax policy. We should be just rip off the Band-Aid and get rid of it for everybody. I think that's the way to do it. But you know, this bill as amended, it only does apply for 12 months. It's really not going to make a big difference either way, whether you vote it up or vote it down. But I'm going to stick to my principles on this one. And just on the fact of I don't like picking winners and losers, and I want to do tax policy right. And this is a bad tax that needs to go away. We should just rip off the Band-Aid and do it for everybody. So I'll be a no on this bill.
Further discussion. Senator Boner.
Thank you, Mr. President. I'm in support of the bill. I think that this will help our important industries, especially in my neck of the woods, recognizing now that I share representation with the good senator from District 27. I see a lot of cooperation between those two counties where maybe a lot of the activity happens in my neck of the woods, but there's a lot of support that comes from that large population center in the middle of the state. This is a win-win situation for those communities. We talk about having value added based off of our core strengths, and most of the time we focus on adding value to the product after it's produced. I think this kind of has a way of doing it beforehand. If we can further attract more of that support industry, I think that's a good thing for our state, and certainly don't mind a tax break every once in a while, especially for multiple industries. I think we've been focused on one industry. That's the way I read this bill, it does not just apply to one type of energy, it applies to all of them. And so I think that all those industries pay more than their fair share if we look at how much taxes they produce versus how much they require in public services. And so for that reason, I can support this bill. I think it's good for our energy industry, all of our energy industries.
Further discussion. Senator Rothfuss.
Thank you, Mr. President. On and against the bill, I share the concerns of the good chairman of the Revenue Committee that it's a non-uniform tax policy. And realistically, we all know that we need to work on the structure of revenue. There's a lot of work ahead. I look forward to working with a good chairman on that. But I think one of the things that we do have to stand by is the uniformity of that policy to the best degree possible. We can go back and forth on raise it, lower it, here, there, which are the appropriate taxes. But when we do start picking winners, I mean, what this says, certainly to folks that are in information technology trying to build a server farm, yeah, you're not the industry we're looking for through this legislation. You're not energy production. So we're not going to provide you with an equitable playing field to the energy sector. Pharmaceuticals, wouldn't it be great to have some pharmaceutical manufacturing companies in Wyoming? I'd sure love that, Mr. President. This would not give any exemptions or anything to incentivize or motivate that industrial sector. I think it's important, Mr. President, that we look for ways to entice companies to Wyoming and that we prepare a tax structure and revenue policy that is inviting to business and industry. Mr. President, I don't think this one does that in any way, regrettably. There's nothing here that would bring someone to Wyoming that wasn't planning on coming to Wyoming. So it is just a carve-out tax exemption as I see it, particularly with the 12-month exception. It's just a 12-month exemption from having to pay that personal property tax that everyone else would have to pay. Our small businesses, they're all going to have to pay it. Everyone on Main Street still paying what they would pay. They don't get the special treatment. So, Mr. President, on and against special treatment, on and against the bill.
McEwen.
Thank you, Mr. President. I'm confused. We brought a bill to get rid of personal property tax, and I listened to the arguments as that bill got defeated. We can't afford to give the energy sector a break because it's going to cost too much money. We want to help the little guy out, but we got to keep getting our tax dollars from the energy sector. And then a couple weeks later, week and a half later, here we are trying to offer the energy sector a break and not the little guy. So as we work on tax reform and new tax policies, we got some work to do. I want to say I'm confused at the discussion today. Thank you, Mr. President.
Mayor Cooper.
Thank you, Mr. President. There's a practice around within some of these bigger companies. When they have a big budget, a $1 billion budget somewhere, they take delivery on their equipment in a county with a low tax base, 4%, 5%, save them a point or two. That's a big deal on a $1 billion budget or a $500 million budget. This thing does something a lot more than just carve out a little bit of property tax. This makes sure that this sales tax goes to the right county. Instead of one county getting all of the tax in one small area, this makes sure that that tax goes to the county where the product is being used. And that's really important, I think. So on and for the bill.
Senator Hicks.
Yeah, Mr. President, I find myself in the position that I agree with my colleague, and I agree with my colleague. We used to have a colleague here that sat in the corner, Mr. President. He said, 50% of my friends are for this bill and 50% are against it. And Mr. President, I'm going to vote with my friends on this bill. But I think there's some very valid points here. The component that you store it and then you install it in another county. I 100% agree with that there needs to be some parity associated with that. That's the part I really like in the bill, Mr. President. The other part is that within my district, I represent some very large mining interests. And some of them are going through some fairly substantial build outs that's going to pay literally hundreds of millions of dollars or millions of dollars, Mr. President, in severance taxes within the industry sector in Sweetwater County. They'll stockpile some of these materials for these change outs. They're not eligible for this exemption. And it doesn't necessarily impact them from a standpoint, it's gonna be built in that county, but they don't qualify for exemption. We got a giant manufacturer that makes fertilizer over there in Sweetwater County, and if they do a big change out, sometimes they'll stockpile equipment, materials to do those construction jobs. They don't get this exemption. And so on one hand, I find myself that I agree with, once you install it in another county, that you ought to derive some of the tax benefits associated with that sales tax component. On the other side, I'm sitting here and I agree with the chairman of revenue. It's not a fair and equitable thing. The mining industry isn't eligible for these exemptions. And so, Mr. Chairman, I guess you know where I'm going to be on this bill.
Senator Ide. Thank you, Mr. President. I'll be the first to go vote for a reduction in taxes, but after listening to this debate and studying this a little bit since it was in committee, I'm a little bit leery of this being targeted to one industry. These wind companies can park these turbines and leave them there and still get their federal subsidies. So I'm probably a no on this bill. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chairman, this is an economic development issue. What's happening is some of our surrounding states are offering this exemption. So these companies are moving this equipment that they're buying, and yes, they're getting a break at the federal level, but they're moving to those states that are offering that exemption. So we need to be competitive if we want to continue to attract this industry to our state. And so this bill helps us do that. So I'm in favor of the bill, Mr. Chairman.
Since you're ready for the question, Senator Landon for your second time.
Mr. President, thank you. And I really do appreciate the debate. This is not an easy one. That's why it's taken a while to get it to this point. You know, the whole argument of winners and losers, I just want to remind the body that this industry, this set of industries that we're talking about here, has already been proven the winner. About 80% of everything we do is because of those industries. All this does is enhance the ability to take some of the laydown yards that the senator from Albany County just pointed toward and maybe entice them to come here and to set up a laydown yard here where they might just keep that equipment longer. If they don't, we're still going to benefit from that taxation in those other counties. I think it's worth the chance, Mr. President. I hope you'll support the bill.
Benson, you ready for the question? House Bill Senator Pappas. Oh. House Bill 213, having been read, energy production inventory exemption, having been read 3 separate times. The question is, shall the bill pass? The Chief Clerk will call the roll.
House Bill 213, third reading roll call. Anderson? Aye. Baldwin? Aye. Barlow? No. Beitman? No. Boner? Aye. Bouchard? No. Brennan? No. Case? No. Cooper? Aye. Dockstetter? Aye. Ellis? Aye. French? No. Furphy? Aye. Guru? No. Hicks? No. Hutchings? No. Ide? No. Jones? Aye. Kinsky? No. Kolb? No. Landon? Aye. Larson? No. McEwen? No. Nethercott? Aye. Pappas? Aye. Rothfuss? No. Salazar? No. Schuler? Aye. Scott? Aye. Steinmetz excused. President Driscoll?
No.
No. Baldwin? Aye to no. Jones? Aye to no. Closing vote. Closing vote closed. House Bill 213, 11 aye, 19 no, 1 excused.
House Bill 213, having failed to receive the affirmative vote of the majority of the members elected to the Senate, House Bill 213 has failed to pass the Senate. Mayor Landon,
Mr. President, may I have privilege of the floor, please?
you may.
I'm going to need a bucket of water to put the fire out over here.
Mr. Vice President, we're at that order of business, consideration of bills on. I will. I'll do some introductions. Thank you. We'll give you a break, coffee break. House Bill 128, first reading of the House Bill.
House Bill 128, Voyeurism Within Enclosed Spaces, sponsored by Representative Gloston. An act relating to crimes and offenses. Passed the House, ayes 62.
House Bill 128 is referred to Committee Number 1, Judiciary. House Bill 124.
House Bill 124, Electricity Generation Taxation, sponsored by Representative Summers. An act relating to taxation. Passed the House, ayes 34, noes 28.
House Bill 124 is referred to Committee Number 3, Revenue. House Bill 11, first reading of the House Bill.
House Bill 11, State Park Rangers Retirement, sponsored by the Judiciary Committee. Passed the House, ayes 60, noes 1, excused 1.
House Bill 11 is referred to Committee Number 5, Travel. House Bill 161, first reading of the House Bill.
House Bill 161 engrossed, Loan Disclosures for Guarantors and Co-Signers, sponsored by Representative Jennings. Passed the House, ayes 54, noes 8.
House Bill 161 is referred to Committee Number 7, Corporations. House Bill 270, first reading of the House Bill.
House Bill 270 engrossed, Improvement and Service Districts Limitations, sponsored by Representative Northrup. An act relating to improvement and service districts. Passed the House, ayes 34, noes 27, conflict 1.
House Bill 270 is referred to Committee Number 7, Corporations. I made a mistake. House Bill 11 is referred to Committee Number 5, Agriculture. Mr. Vice President, we're at that order of business. Senator Ellis,
Mr. President, may I have privilege of the floor?
you may.
Mr. President, in the gallery over my left shoulder, we have members of the Alzheimer's Association. They are hosting a lunch and learn for us today in the Capitol Breezeway, but let's welcome them to the Wyoming Senate before we join them for lunch.
All right, third time's charm. Mr. Vice President, we've got
Mr.
order of
President,
business.
I move that the Senate resolve itself into the Committee of the Whole.
You've heard the motion. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Those opposed, no. Motion is passed. Senator Schuler.
Committee of the Whole come to order. I actually tried to be sick today, but I felt bad for the two people that really are sick, and they came yesterday anyway, so. but
Madam
anyway.
Chair.
Oh, sorry. Vice President Kinski?
The privilege of the floor.
Yes, you may.
Folks, I've always been puzzled a little bit by the Committee of the Whole. I never quite understood it because we have a third reading and a second reading, but why this thing with the Committee of the Whole? So I did a little bit of research. The first recorded instance of a legislative body resolving itself into the Committee of the Whole was 1607. It was the English Parliament. The House of Commons was in a battle with the king over taxation. And they were suspicious that as they debated, the speaker was conveying to the king what they had said about the king or about the king's policies. So what they decided to do is to meet in secret, elect a chairman, and then debate freely the issue. Then later go back in and vote on it. The informality of this procedure has survived the need for secrecy, but to this day, the House of Commons keeps up the, quote, fiction of concealment. And there, the speaker actually leaves the hall and a chairman occupies the clerk's desk. So it has its origins quite some time ago. The need for it has passed, but it's a nice, interesting tradition. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you for that. Let's debate freely today. Appreciate the history. Senator Salazar.
Thank you, Madam Chair. A privilege.
Yes, you may.
So members of the Senate, I have two friends here today. One of those high-priced Washington, D.C. attorneys, and his special guest, Sichi Chen, from the state of Virginia, up here, if you could welcome them. Thank you.
You're here.
Anyone else? Nope. Nope, okay. Well, let's get started then. First bill for our consideration today is House Bill 42. I've lost my voice. I'm gonna have to stop. Will the reading clerk read the bill? Okay, thank you.
House Bill 42, Off-Road Recreation Vehicle Operations, sponsored by the Transportation Committee. An act relating to motor vehicles was referred to Committee Number 9, which returned to committee recommendation that it do pass. Ayes, Senators Cooper, Dockstader, Ellis, Jones, and Rothfuss. Senator Dockstader, Chairman.
Okay, you've heard the reading of the bill. What is your pleasure, Senator Dockstader?
Chair, I recommend that when the Committee of the Whole rises to report, that it do so with a favorable recommendation of House Bill 42. To explain the bill, that'll be myself, along with a little help from my friends. This is an act relating to motor vehicles specifying requirements for operating an off-road recreational vehicle near an interstate, providing for an effective date. Here's the ground rules, members of the Senate. This allows ORVs to use interstate right-of-ways with very specific restrictions. Must be a specific barrier between the trail and the highway. That's the first one. Must be a state trail signed and designated trail. Driver must have valid driver's license. Vehicle must have license plates or trail decals. ORVs must cross or ride solely in designated areas. WYDOT rules will determine right-of-way locations. Those are the basics. Now, members of the Senate, here's a little background on it. This came to light when the organization in the Southwest reached out to a state agency dealing with parks and trails and so forth, and said, how can we connect our communities to all of our historic sites, our geological features, using current off-road trails and designated roads and highways? The state agencies said, well, we'll work hand in hand and develop the routes to do that. And that's gone on over the last 2 years, gone to a lot of meetings on this down in the southwest part of the state. And this bill developed along with a companion piece that's working through the legislative process as well. So currently ORVs with a license plate or trail decal, designated trail decal, cannot cross under a freeway or interstate, even if there are no exits. That's kind of the problem. There are times in the name of safety of the riders, that resources, protection, and connectivity might make sense to make a connection. For example, we're going down 500 miles of trails and roads in one section. We need to make that crossing to the other side of the interstate, reach another 1,000 miles. Then we put this piece of legislation together. Off-road vehicles have a direct spending effect, and I'll come back to that in just a moment, what it does for a community. But ultimately, the state parks have worked closely with our state agency dealing with highways, and they've come together with this bill. And I commend all those who worked, because we went into this with a series of meetings and hearings and just a lot of work looking for a solution. I commend the state agency for helping us define that. Motorized Trails Program will ensure that the interstate right-of-way trails will only be considered as a last resort when all other route options have been exhausted. There's a need for a perpendicular crossing or use of the interstate right-of-way. The state program would review and determine whether it is a good option, considering these factors, considering the safety of the rider, the expense, the connectivity, and the resource protection. If it's deemed as a good option, then the Trails Program would then reach out to the state agency who has the ultimate say, and that state agency would review from a safety and an engineering standpoint and a few other viewpoints to make sure that this is a good decision. Any trails that utilize the right-of-ways would be reviewed annually, so they'll go back and say, is this still a good option? An annual process to say, did we make the correct decision here and is it working well? I'll ensure that they're meeting all the safety requirements. So with that, just a brief summary of the bill, because I've explained everything the bill does, but the exception comes on page 1 and on to page 2. And then we set up the rules down along 13, and we select this is how we select the interstate crossings at the bottom of the page. In certain instances, you got to have physical barriers. If it's big wide area, as we explained in committee, be a fence. If it's close area, they'd use probably concrete barriers to divide the areas. Here's the catch: you got to have driver's licenses, got to have your vehicle, your OHV properly licensed or with the stickers, and that comes with page 3 and 4. Those are the basics. Let me bring you back to what it means annually before all of this. Off-road vehicles of direct spending impact about $296 million annually with the development of these and the other routes. We found that other states are already using this, and they've noted a significant change in income, especially as it relates to travel and tourism. These folks come in, they stay in our hotels, they buy our gas, they eat at our restaurants, and we've essentially, members of the Senate, put this all together, two pieces of different legislation, to create a template, a regional concept, using about 3 of our Southwest counties to put this together. And hopefully what we develop here can be used in other regional areas of the state. With that, ask for your support.
Discussion? Senator Landon.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. I want to salute the chairman of the Minerals Committee and appreciate him taking up a piece of that, including this last couple of legs of the journey. This is a bill, fellow senators, that dates back a couple of years, as he pointed out, and I just wanted to commend the work throughout the last interim. You were a part of that, Madam Chairman, which we really appreciated. As the chairman of your Transportation Committee, I can tell you we spent a lot of time on this issue, and it's one of the more important bills, I think, that we brought forward out of the interim. One little piece that I thought might be of interest, we asked our staff to take a hard look at constitutional concerns, other types of concerns that might exist in those right-of-ways out there. And they did a great job of developing a white paper for us, Madam Chairman. And the bottom line is, it's the Wyoming Senate that decides what goes on in those right-of-ways. in working with our agencies out there. So I think we're clear to go. I think this has an opportunity for many, many things in the southwest part of the state. If it works like we think it will over there, we're going to borrow that concept, and I think it can go statewide. So thank you very much, Madam Chairman.
Senator Barlow.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. So I guess my query is, the new language is specific to the interstate highways, and is there another part of statute that allows this along state highways and other roadways in the state of Wyoming? Thank you, Madam Chairman.
Senator Jones.
Madam Chair, I just wanted to say that I'm very much in support of this bill. They've been working long and hard on it. It means a lot to Southwest Wyoming. It's a great bill, and there's been a study, ORV riding generates $365 million a year for Wyoming, and this isn't just a benefit to Southwest Wyoming, it can be used across the state. Some of the collaborative rides have been going on for the past couple years, and I think there's going to be another one this summer. I'm proud to be a part of those rides, and thank you for your consideration.
Senator Kolb.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. I stand in support of this bill. It is in fact a sister bill with this bill, as was explained, that will in fact allow any community in the state of Wyoming to participate. And it's in collaboration with, of course, local agreement. So it's driven by, say, the cities of, in my district that would ask to be enrolled in the state as a state's trail. And then they would designate it, and they would work with the state hand in hand in creating a network. So this is just the last piece of the puzzle. I think it's a great opportunity for the entire state to enhance our tourism in a real meaningful way. So thank you, Madam Chairman.
Further discussion? Senator Dockstader.
Thank you, Madam Chair. All the meetings I went to, we were focusing on working with the interstate. I don't recall the issue of state highways coming up. I can track that, double check it for you so that we have an answer in further reading, especially for the person issuing the question. But just that was never an issue in all of our work 2 years of this. I want to commend the former chair of the committee that just spoke a moment ago. That they put a lot of time sorting this out, making sure we had it right, and commend him and the state agency who said, let's find a solution here. In all our work, we're not looking to have any handouts or anything. You work off the existing funds that come in from your stickers and your license plates, your gas tax, so forth, anything that would help develop the trails further. So essentially kind of a self-sustained. I sense, folks, that we're sitting on the edge of something that's going to take our travel and tourism income in this state into a whole different direction, because these folks, from what I've seen, have a lot of discretional funds, the kind of vehicles they bring in, what I've already seen in the Southwest. They come into play, but they also want to have a good base of operations. And our communities in Wyoming can offer that. And so I ask for your support, and we'll get a little more clarification down the road. Thank you.
Senator Pappas.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. I do believe, and I could be mistaken, but if I recall the testimony, state roads can already be enrolled in the trail system. So it's the issue with the interstates only. So I believe all county, anything lower than an interstate has the ability to be enrolled into the trail system right now. So it's not an issue.
Whoops, it's not a fire drill, is it? Any further discussion on this bill? Okay, ready for the question? It sounds like it's been called. All those in favor of Senator Dockstader's motion that when the committee of the whole rises to report it, do so with the favorable recommendation of House Bill 42, please say aye. Aye. Those opposed, no. Okay, Senate file, oops, not Senate file. House Bill 42 has passed the committee of the whole. Next bill for our consideration is House Bill 100. Could the reading clerk please read the bill?
House Bill 100, Acquisition Value Study, sponsored by Representative Jennings, an act relating to property tax, was referred to committee number 2, I beg your pardon, first referred to committee number 3, which returned to committee recommendation that it do pass. Ayes, Senators Beitman, French, Ide, McEwen, and Pappas. Senator Beitman, chairman. Was re-referred to committee number 2, which returned to committee recommendation that it do pass. Ayes, Senators Anderson, Guru, Kinski, Nethercott, and Salazar. Senator Kinski, chairman.
Okay, you heard the reading of the bill. What's your pleasure? Senator Beitman.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. I move that when the Committee of the Whole rises to report it, do so with a do pass recommendation on House Bill 100, Acquisition Value Study. Senator Hutchings, do you want me to do this one? Okay, I'll take it. And I'll explain the bill to you. Ladies and gentlemen of the Senate, this is a pretty straightforward bill. It's requiring the Department of Revenue to conduct a study on acquisition-based taxation for property tax purposes. This is your tax reform bill. We've had some tax relief bills for property tax, for instant relief. This takes a longer-term approach to look at it and really taking in the feedback a lot of us received from our constituents throughout the interim and the campaign of last campaign cycle, where obviously property tax reform was probably really high on everybody's list, at least in my district. And a lot of people are curious as to whether or not Wyoming could implement such a system. An acquisition-based system is simply takes what you paid for your house or your property, and that's your base. The acquisition price is the basis for your taxable value, and it continues on until you sell the house. So you don't get these big surprises every year in the mail when you get your tax bill, because everybody around you is selling their house for more and more money, and magically your property value keeps going up and up and up. And so it helps, takes care of the idea of it taking care of our seniors and letting people stay in their homes longer because they know what their property tax is going to be year after year. But with doing such a system, it's important that we get it right and we don't just jump in and then kind of build the plane while we're flying it. And I think doing a study is very prudent and important to see if this would even work in Wyoming. And we also have to know what the, obviously the constitutional changes that would have to take place, all the unintended consequences with the revenue streams and everything like that. So what it would take to implement this if that was the way to go. So that's the impetus behind the bill. And you'll see Section 1 directs the Department of Revenue to contract with an outside consultant to conduct a study on the regulatory procedural changes necessary to convert Wyoming's residential property tax system to a system based on the acquisition value of the property. And I know there's a committee of the whole amendment at this point. This is the bill. I'll stand for questions on the bill, but I think we should hear about this committee of the whole amendment first because I think it makes the bill better. So I'll hand it off to the good Senator Kinski.
Vice President Kinski.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I would move, could we have the amendment read in?
House Bill 100, Committee of the Whole Amendment Number 1 to engrossed copy, page 3 after line 21, insert.
Madam Chair, I would move Committee of the Whole Amendment Number 1 to House Bill 100, urge the body's favorable implementation. So the way this bill is structured, it calls for a study, and then it outlines a series of things that it would like the study to consider. This simply adds 2 items to that series, which is to look at possible inequities that may arise under this system. So the first is whether the implementation of a property tax system based on acquisition value would result in inequities to taxpayers, including whether taxpayers who purchase their properties more recently than others would be required to pay more in property tax to make up lost revenue. And then 10, a review of other states that have implemented property tax systems based on acquisition value and whether those have resulted in such inequities. And let me start, Madam Chair, by saying I have signed on to the bill as a sponsor. I think we need to look at this. I'm skeptical about acquisition-based systems. I've got an assessor that said, if you want an income tax in Wyoming, adopt Prop 13 from the West Coast. And he sees it as that. I'm not absolutely convinced that it's bad or good either way, but I do have experience under an acquisition-based system, and I can tell you, if you take 3 families, all equal, this one bought their house 15 years ago, they pay $2,000 in tax. This one bought theirs 7 years ago, they pay half again as much. And this one buys it this year, and they pay double. Because, at least the experience I had, all the taxes that the grandfathered people aren't paying get shifted on to other taxpayers. So it did create, at least in that instance, a lot of inequities. But I do think we need to study it. I think we need to look at it. This is one of those, we've seen some other issues where it just keeps coming back and coming back and coming back, and we finally resolve it by, let's just get a study, let's just get the answer. So amongst the answers that we'd like to get, besides these about what's the impact on revenue, is just what's the impact on how the tax is spread amongst different taxpayers. So I'd urge a favorable consideration of the amendment.
Senator Salazar.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I just want to compliment the Chairman of Appropriations for bringing this amendment, because the inequities do exist, at least in my constituency. And if we're going to do a study, we might as well do it right and encompass, obviously, these inequities that are occurring in our state. So I would ask the body's favorable vote on this amendment. Thank you.
Okay, the question's been called. All those in favor of Senator Kinski's motion to adopt the wasn't the standing committee, Committee of the Whole Amendment number 1 to House Bill 100, please say aye. Aye. Those opposed, no. Okay, that amendment, Committee of the Whole, Bill number 1 to House Bill 100 has been adopted. Back on the bill. Senator Barlow.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. So I have 2 questions. One's a practical question, looking at the effective immediately date and then requiring a report by September 1st. I guess, is that doable? Can we find a contractor, go through an RFP process, and have a meaningful product that takes on both very practical questions, but also political questions, such as the constitutional potential nexus, et cetera? So that's the first question, and maybe they just pass on those. The second question is, I'd rather give our Revenue Committee a couple extra meeting days and let them do this work and bring us back a product that's actually generated from people who know the state of Wyoming and know the concerns that we've heard about. Thank you, Madam Chairman.
Senator Pappas is next. I'll come back to you next after that.
Thank you, Madam Chairwoman. As a member of the previous Revenue Committee during the interim, this came up in our meetings, and there were a lot of questions, more questions than answers, certainly, on the pros and cons of changing our system, going to an acquisition value. And I know that there will be more interest in pursuing legislation going forward. And it is incumbent upon us as sitting on the new Revenue Committee that we have all the best information we have, because I think there's a lot of folks out there that really want to see us go this way. I have no knowledge about how these different systems would work in Wyoming, and I believe that the Revenue Committee needs as much information as it can. Giving a couple extra days to the committee may be valuable. However, the collection of this information can't be done by the committee, all right? And certainly the amendment we just passed was very, very key to this. So I'm glad we passed that, because that will be valuable information. But I, as a member of that committee, I urge you, please, let's get this information. I agree. I don't know whether it's going to be good or bad for us, but I don't think Just make it an interim topic for the revenue committee is going to get us anywhere. We do need to have professional help that will be able to ascertain the data and bring it to us. Now, whether we've got enough time to do the report, I don't know. Certainly, I know that the intent is maybe to bring something in the 2024 session. If that's the case, it'll have to be, it'll be quick turnaround to work some bills after we get the report. But I do urge that we go ahead with the study.
Senator Kolb?
Thank you, Madam Chairman. Well, to the good members of the body, I would contend that this plane has flown and crashed on the West Coast. The reason why I say that is they've been doing this over there, and it's a terrible issue. It has many consequences for taking this path. I think the history's out there for everyone to read, but I learn from history. I don't forget it, and I think this needs to be taken into consideration. That I'd rather not spend $10,000 on a study that has already failed in other places, particularly on the good folks in the West Coast, which I know we always follow. So thank you, Madam Chairman.
Senator Ellis?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Along those lines of the cost, I think as introduced, it was 10,000, but since the bill has evolved, I believe the appropriation's more like 50,000. So just a little discussion or information about why the price tag got so much more expensive.
Senator Rothfuss?
Thank you, Madam Chairman. I do have a question, and I was reading through the objectives for the study. One thing that I would wonder about is honestly the constitutionality and how it would fit within our current constitutional framework to do this type of an assessment and evaluation, where we know in Article 15, Section 11D that you need to have uniformity of assessment and valuation. So, question to the proponents, is that one of the things that would be intended to be addressed by the study? Is how would this fit into our Constitution? Would it be constitutional? And if not, what changes would need to be looked at? I don't see that in the questions that are being laid out, and honestly, maybe that's something we could add if that's intended, but not currently there. Thank you, Madam Chairman.
Vice President?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Taking those in reverse order, my friend from the Ivory Tower, I think we'd welcome a second reading amendment that addresses that issue. I looked at acquisition based, and in Wyoming, it would take a constitutional amendment. I'm fairly certain of that. So that would be a good add. So what happened is the department went out and tested the marketplace for people who could do this kind of work. And they came back not with $10,000, but they said roughly $38,000. Bumping it to 50 gives just a little bit of margin for error in case they go out for an RFP and it ends up costing more. I mean, the scope of this study is pretty broad. And then my friend from Donkey Creek said that wouldn't it be better just to give the committee a few days? And I think my friend, the architect, outlined ably that this is the kind of work the members can't do. They've got to have somebody with specialized knowledge and expertise to do this. I think I got all those. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Senator Hutchings?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I will get with the bringer of the bill and the good senator from Albany County and work on a second reading amendment. Thank you.
Senator Scott?
Madam Chairman, a couple of points. The point was raised, would we get a study done in time with this? And growing back in my experience, when I was chairing Committee 10, we had some experience with this sort of thing. And assuming the size of the study is large enough and doesn't hit some kind of exemption, the answer is if you stick with the state contracting system, you will not get an adequate study done within the time frame here. It is slow and cumbersome. We found the hard way that it took so much of the time to get the contract through that you didn't get good results. They had to hurry too much. If you want to get a good study done in a relatively short time frame, exempt the study from the state contracting system. It is just too cumbersome. And that says some things, we ought to do some work on the state contracting system, but that's not the issue in this bill. So do take that step. And Madam Chairman, I would also point out, not only does the acquisition system produce great inequities over time, which it does do, but it induces some has some unfortunate incentives for behavior in it. And people, for instance, that have been in a home for a long time and need to downsize because the home is too big for them, the family's grown, that sort of thing, they have an incentive to stick in that home because the taxes are lower. They don't move out to a smaller place, which would have higher taxes because they've been recently bought it. And the result is you get a somewhat irrational allocation of the housing stock over time. And that, Madam Chairman, I don't know what the study will get into that and how large that effect of that incentive is, but that's one that would need to be looked at as well, Madam Chairman.
Senator Beitman.
Thank you, Madam Chair. In committee, we did not hear any testimony from the department that they could not get this done on time. So I will double check with them to make sure that they have ample time to give us a quality report. I do think it's vitally important that we get the data we need to make an informed decision. That's the whole point of doing this study. I think we can put this issue to bed once and for all, whether up or down, we do it or we don't do it, but we need to have the best information possible to make a wise and informed decision. Thank you.
Senator Pappas.
Yeah, thank you, Madam Chair, Chairman. I don't necessarily think that this is going to be the best system either. I had my reservations when I heard what was coming, folks that were talking about it in committee, and frankly, I'm skeptical about it as well. But I know there's enough people out there that are going to bring some legislation to this on this matter, and I, as a member of the Revenue Committee, want as much information about what's good and what's bad about this particular avenue, so that I can make a decision to either vote for it or vote against it. If I don't have that information, frankly, it's doesn't do us any good. We'll be seeing bills and we'll be arguing about what's good and bad, but we'll be arguing it on the merits of people's opinion and not on facts that could be sought out in a report, or could be provided in a report. So again, I think it's good to have the system, to have the study done, and if the study tells us we've got some huge inequities and other problems with it, well, hey, gives me the ability to say, well, we can't go that way. We need to kill it. So I think the study is going to be valuable either way.
You ready for the question? Okay, all those in favor of Senator Beitman's motion that when the committee of the whole rises to report, that it do so with the favorable recommendation of House Bill 100, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, say no. No. Okay, I believe that House Bill 100 has passed the committee of the whole. The next bill for our consideration, oh, sorry, didn't see you. Majority Floor Leader Hicks.
Madam Chairman, you're between senators and their lunch, so I'll help you out here. So, Madam Chairman, I move the committee of the whole beg leave to rise and sit again.
Okay, you've heard the amendment. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Okay, I believe that passes. It's on your Senator. Oops, sorry. Not your floor.
No, we'll do it. Okay, we're gonna do some. Senator Hicks, are you ready on message 284 on House Bill 41?
Yeah, Mr. President, I'd move for concurrence on the joint.
Oh, I haven't read in, I'm sorry.
Read that in, please.
Joint Conference Committee Number 1 report, House Bill 41, lightweight trailers, permanent registration, referencing Senate message number 284, signed by Representatives Brown, Berger, and Tarver, and Senators Hicks, Brennan, and Jones.
Senator Hicks.
Mr. President, I move Joint Conference Committee Report number 84 on the original House Bill 41, lightweight trailers, permanent registration, would ask for your favorable consideration. Members, the original bill as it came down here had a once lifetime fee of $500. We reduced that to $200. Our colleagues went in and we debated and we arm wrestled with our House colleagues, and we came out and we split the baby on this with Mr. Chairman. And the fee would be $350, which is split the position. So I'd ask for your favorable consideration of an aye vote on concurrence.
Mr. Chairman, I'll have you move one more time. It's Joint Conference Committee Report number 1 on House Bill 41.
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, what you said, I move Joint Conference Committee Report on number 1 on House Bill 41 and ask for your favorable consideration.
Thank you. The motion is that the Senate do adopt Joint Conference Committee number 284, report reference House Bill 41, and vote aye. You have been asked to vote aye. Chief Clerk will call the roll.
Joint Conference Committee Report number 1, House Bill 41, roll call. Anderson? Hold on, excuse me 1 minute. Anderson? Aye. Aye. Baldwin? Aye. Barlow? No. Beitman? Aye. Boner? Aye. Aye. Bouchard? Aye. Brennan? Aye. Case? Aye. Cooper? Aye. Dockstetter? Aye. Ellis? Aye. French? Aye. Furphy? Aye. Garou? Aye. Hicks?
Aye.
Aye. Hutchings? Ide? Jones? Aye. Kinski?
Aye.
Aye. Cole? Aye. Landon? Aye. Larson? Aye. McEwen? Aye. Nethercott? Aye. Pappas?
Aye.
Aye. Rothfuss? Aye. Salazar? Aye. Schuler? Aye. Scott? Aye. Steinmetz excused. Hutchings?
Excused.
Excused. President Driscoll?
Aye.
Aye. Closing vote. Closing. Vote closed. Joint Conference Committee number 1 to House Bill 41, 28 aye, 1 no, 2 excused.
By your vote, you have adopted Joint Committee Report, Conference Committee number 1 report referencing House Bill 41. Senator Landon.
Mr. President, may I have quick privilege of the floor?
You may.
Thank you, Mr. President. I just wanted to salute the former senator from up in the Park County country. That was Senator Koss' bill from a couple of years ago. It didn't quite make it through last year. We took it as an interim topic and brought it back through the Transportation Committee, but just wanted to tip the sombrero a little bit to the former senator. So,
Thank you.
Hear, hear.
Any announcements? Senator Case. Oh, Senator Case, you don't have it. No announcements. Senator Biden.
Thank you, Mr. President. Is it okay for committee announcements?
Yes, sir.
Your committee number 3 revenue will meet at, let's say, 12:30. Give us some time to wolf down some food here. And W6, to take up the following 2 bills, House Bill 103, political party affiliation declaration and changes, and House Bill 98, engrossed property tax homeowners exemption.
Mayor Baldwin.
Thank you, Mr. President. Your committee number 10, Labor, Health, and Social Services, will meet at 8 a.m. tomorrow morning in W06 and online to consider their own mental health and to consider the House Bill 140, Mental Health Care Access Collaborative Care Model, and House Bill 108, Sale of THC vaping devices and edibles to minors prohibited.
Chairman Kinski.
Mr. President, your committee number 2 will meet today at 12:45 in room E301 to hear HB 89, state investment returns, HB 64, legislative stabilization reserve account obligations, HB 208, school foundation program reserve account investments, and then we have a series of re-referrals, House Bill 190, House Bill 188, House Bill 81, House Bill 33. Thank you, Mr. President.
Mayor French.
Thank you, Mr. President. Your committee number 5, Senate Agricultural, State and Public Lands and Water Resources, will meet in room 2, 15 minutes after adjournment today, and online to consider the following 2 bills. House Bill 17, State Lands and Grazing of Non-Owned Livestock. This is continued over from February 14th. And then House Journal 3, Wild Horses and Barrels Best Management Practices.
Thank you, Senator Landon.
Thank you, Mr. President. A reminder, this is for your Judiciary Committee, 7:30 in the morning. We will meet in the historic Supreme Court room to take up the issue of suicide with our first responders. All legislators and the public are obviously invited to attend. Welcome to that meeting. Following the meeting at 8:30, Mr. President, the Judiciary Committee will take up House Bill 94 engrossed, Board of Parole Wyoming residency, and that's down in W4 at 8:30 in the morning.
Heard the motion. All in favor, say aye. Those opposed, nay. Senate will stand recessed until 2 p.m.